This week on Weather 101, we're continuing our discussion of the tropics. And Gracie, last week we talked about the ingredients needed for tropical cyclones to form, what can inhibit their formation, as well as some different circulation patterns that will result in us seeing a more active hurricane season or a less active one.
Absolutely, Austin. And today we're going to dive in more detail when it comes to tropical weather. So let's get into it.
Sounds good. We'll start with the parts of a hurricane. We talked about how they form, but we've got different parts of a hurricane. We've got the eye, which is going to be the calm spot of that hurricane. It's where we got sinking air and light winds. But compare that to the eye wall. That's where we have the location of our strongest winds. That's where we've got all that converging air there, results in the strongest part of the storm. You commonly see heavy rain and those tallest thunderstorms in that area, Gracie.
Absolutely. And then we have the outer rain bands, and those are the curved bands of clouds and thunderstorms that can stretch from miles and miles away from that eye wall or that eye. So that's what we typically see, those impacts. Again, we always say they're stretching far and wide from the center of the storm. And even when it comes to the cone of uncertainty, we can see those rain bands stretching from outside of that cone as well.
Right. And just for reference here, this satellite image is of Hurricane Katrina, which we're coming up on 20 years of its anniversary. Unfortunately, brings back bad memories for many here in Mississippi. But that just shows that's just one of the strongest hurricanes that we have seen. And we measure those hurricanes with the Saffir-Simpson scale. So Category 1, those range from 74 to 95 miles an hour. And you know, it's still dangerous, those winds being that strong. Minimal damage with that. Category 2 is a little stronger, 96 to 110 miles an hour. You get pretty good damage with that, though,
Absolutely.
Gracie.
And we also use the pressure to define that when it comes to the Saffir-Simpson scale. Category 1 and a Category 2. A Category 1 hurricane needs to be greater than 980 millibars of pressure. And the Category 2 is a 965 to 979 millibars of pressure. Let's move on to Category 3. That's when, Austin, we categorize this as a major hurricane, and that's devastating damage. So winds up to 129 miles per hour. That is a high-end Category 3 hurricane. Moving on to Category 4 as well. That is when catastrophic damage becomes likely. At 130 miles per hour to 156 miles per hour. At Category 4, pressure can also be measured as low as 920 millibars.
And then we got Category 5, of course, the strongest hurricane, catastrophic damage, again, extreme winds, 157 miles an hour or greater. So just certainly you don't want to see any of those. But as we talked about last week, Gracie, whenever we talked about the names of hurricanes that have already been retired, you know, Category 3 hurricanes do bad enough damage that it's deadly, cost a lot in damage. So you don't have to have a Category 5 hurricane for it to be extremely dangerous. You can see our graphic here just showing Category 5 basically can wipe anything
anything away. Absolutely, yes. And that is something that we're watching for over, you know, the next few weeks. Those storms can strengthen quickly. And one thing specifically also we watch for is the different parts of a hurricane, which we're going to dive into. But overall, of course, the movement, that's going to be counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. And also, why do those storms move counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere?
So that is due to the Coriolis force, which is an apparent force that we experience here on Earth due to the rotation of the Earth, causes those storms to rotate counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere, clockwise in the southern half. And you can see here our storm circulation moving counterclockwise, storm movement mainly moving towards the north. That results in these right two quadrants here having the strongest winds, and you'll see the impacts are greater in those areas as well.
And the southern hemisphere, that's when those cyclones will move clockwise as well. So let's break down the parts of a hurricane. We talk about this a good bit. We even use the term the dirty side. And Austin, tell me what the worst part of that hurricane is going to be as far as threats go.
So you've got the right front side that's going to be the worst, because that's where you got the, I'm going to go back to this graphic, the storm circulation and the storm movement are both going in the same direction on the right front side, and then for the other right side as well, the right rear. But still, the worst winds, you can have tornadoes in that right front quadrant. Flooding is the worst storm surge as well. But even on the left side, you've still got some impacts.
Well, exactly. Not to minimize the threats, but when you you compare the two, the right front quadrant is going to be our worst as far as impacts, but even the left side of that storm, you still can see all modes of severe impacts: winds, tornadoes, storm surge, and flooding as well.
Right. So that wraps up this week's segment of Weather 101. We appreciate you watching. If you've missed any of our Weather 101 segments, you can catch those on WJTV.com or our streaming app, WJTV Plus. If you have any weather questions, we would love to answer them. Email us at WJTVweather@nexstar.tv.